what is executive presence? Executive presence is that vague term that you've often heard as the reason why certain people get promoted and others stay flat. Now, I was fortunate enough to, throughout my career, be in many different executive meetings. And over those 10 years, particularly in partnership roles where I was meeting with other very senior level folks at tech companies, sports companies, I learned that there is one simple way that people get executive presence. And that is they understand how to make anyone feel the way that they want them to feel after any interaction with them. It's how do you make them feel? Now, what I like to do is think about what is that one word that I want that person to feel and to associate with me. So when we were, actually I'll take you back to a specific story that articulates exactly how you can break this down. And it really comes down to, let's imagine you have a 30-minute meeting with either a very senior level partner or perhaps someone internal in your organization. I like to break down the meeting into 3 chunks. There's within the first 5 minutes, the next 15 minutes, and finally the overall meeting by the end of it, at the end of the 30-minute session, how do you want them to feel? And so specifically, many, many years ago, I remember visiting a high-profile sports company with our SVP of business development. And at the end of the meeting, the partner was like, wow, I'm super excited to work with you. We have so many great things to follow up on. Thank you so much for coming. Please let me take you to lunch. It couldn't have gone any better. Now, how did we do it? Well, within the first 5 minutes, what was critical was that our introductions were concise and they made that person feel really good about themselves. So again, let's go back. It's the intro. It's your intro, and how do you articulate it so that it's concise and they feel really good? Okay. Now, let's hit on that, the concise bit. So, my name is Preston. I'm our lead of partnerships here at X Company, and I am super excited to get to know you more, frankly, because we've been working with many members of your team, namely Steven, Abby, who have been not only super resourceful, but frankly more responsive than almost any other partner I've ever seen. And I'm sure a lot of it has to go to you and your leadership, so thank you. Really excited to get talking. Now, what does that mean? Well, all it is it's an intro about who I am, what I do at X Company, and also one thing that brought us together. Specifically, people on your working team that helped set this up and were super resourceful. And again, it speaks to that person's leadership. So now they're like, oh yeah, of course, I know that person. That person's on my team. It's awesome that you're working with them. Right now you've built some connection. Now, what I'd like to do is focus on, within these first 5 minutes, let's say that you're actually a little bit more junior in your career, but you happen to be at a table full of executives. The key to remember is that if you're a junior, make sure to speak, okay? Make sure to speak. What do I mean by that? Well, I've been in situations where before I've been just kind of in the corner taking notes. You do not want to be seen as just a delegated note taker in any of these meetings. Instead, you introduce yourself, you can compliment that person based off of what you know about that person. You can also ask a question. It could be something as simple as, you mentioned this, but can you dig deeper a little bit? I'm not sure I'm quite following you, right? That's okay. As long as you speak up, they'll be more than happy to articulate it so that everyone's on the same page. Another thing you can ask is, based off of what X person said, I wanted to also add that another aspect of our partnership that could be really powerful is why, right? So now that you're building on someone else's point, you're asking a follow-up question, you're expressing excitement, whatever it is, even if it's just your intro, make sure your presence is felt, because otherwise you'll be forgotten. Okay, so that's the first 5 minutes. You want to have a concise intro, you want to make sure that you are heard. And again, let's think, how do they want to feel, right? This is how you make them feel connected to you. So that's the key word. Within the first 5 minutes, you want that person on the other side of the table to feel connected to you. Now, what about within the next 15 minutes of conversation? So what I like to think of here is, let's understand, let's start with this. You want them to feel eager. You want them to feel eager to learn more about you. And there's one trick that I like to do to get them to feel eager, which is very simply, get them talking, okay? Now, there's a specific way to do this, but the overall philosophy here, and this is what I've seen with many executives, including this SVP of BD, is she asks the partner, what does success look like to you and why? What have other partnerships that you've had for all of those with X, Y, and Z companies, what worked well, what didn't? Let's probe. The key is probing. You want to understand, what does their worldview look like, okay? And when you do that, they get talking, they get excited, they actually care, because now you've shown that you care. So now they're going to reciprocate that by wanting to learn more about you. And that's where you can really deliver your value. But first and foremost, you got to understand what is in it for them. Because when you have any business meeting, the key is you got to understand what is the partner or customer value. And I like to use a little Venn diagram here. It's like, here is partner or customer value, right? They have their own set of criteria, their own set of needs. You might have your own needs. So we call these business needs, okay? There's this overlap right here, which is where the magic happens. That's where the partnership takes place. That's where you got the overlap of partner, customer value, and business value. Right now, in the next 15 minutes, your goal is to understand this circle right here. What is that partner? What is that customer value? And then you try to figure out, okay, there are certain things that are resonating with me. Maybe I can actually articulate that once I have the opportunity to speak. But let me just understand them first. So don't launch into a pitch because they're not going to be eager to learn more. When you get them talking, now they're eager to learn more about you because they've revealed their hands. They want to know what your hands look like. So that's what I like to do. Get them talking, probing, asking questions like, what does success look like? What hasn't worked in the past? Why were you specifically interested in coming to us so that we could actually have this conversation? All of those things are really important. Now, within the next 30 minutes at the end, this is what I like to say. Make them want to work with you, okay? This is where the actionable next steps come in, right? Now this is, okay, I've learned about you. You've even said certain things that really resonated with me based off of what I shared. Now, how do we take that into action? And the way I like to think about it at the very end is a couple of things. One, make sure that anything where they say, next step, I think a very logical follow-up or next step is blank. Write that down. Okay, write that down no matter what. It's the most important thing you write down is the action item. It's not about the key learning. Okay, so once you've done that, you will probably have your top 3 things that will surface, right? The key is you want to articulate that at the end because that's what's going to be ingrained in people's minds. Oh, so, this is what I saw my SVP of BD do. She was like, well, this is awesome. I'm super glad that we had a chance to chat. It looks like we need to, 1, identify our mutual customers and do some more research around that. 2, let's actually set up a brainstorm session with our working team so that we can figure out a nice idea to go after. And 3, let's make sure to have another follow-up in the next 6 months. See, that was awesome. Now it's like, yeah, of course, we have a whole path to go towards together. And that's what gets momentum. That's what gets people excited.